because they just keep adding teams, so we got to keep talking about them.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do what we usually do, though. We got rankings. We'll do championship prediction, sleeper team, best matchup of the year, best quarterback, and best player. And then we'll kick right into our second segment of the night.
Yes.
I'll start this week, and then we'll let Dylan do the Big 12 next week because that's his conference. He's part of America's conference.
It is.
So
America's teams.
There you go. America's teams.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get rolling into this. I like to start from worst to best.
Yep. I feel like that's the only way to start, honestly.
Yeah. So we got 18 teams. We're going to start. Mm-hmm. I'll speed through the bottom half because it's not too much. But Indiana, I have at 18. Curt Cignetti comes in from JMU, takes over that regime, brings in 13 guys from JMU as well as both coordinators. So a lot of turnover. They do retain Curtis Rourke, who was the quarterback there last year, which is good. So now you have some stability there. They bring in 9 receivers. 4 of them are returning, 5 new guys. So you're going to have depth there, which is always good because you need depth. Offensive line is going to be a little bit of mix and match. They do bring back 2 guys. But other than that, they're going to have to fill in 3 new guys with transfer spots. Defensively, it's going to be a lot of the same thing. A lot of turnover defensively. Bring in a couple guys. A lot of the Sun Belt. They have a bunch of guys from JMU, a few guys from Old Dominion coming in. Defensively, the D-line, I think, is going to be the strength this year for Indiana. I just don't know, but I have question marks on the outs, the next 2 levels, linebacker and secondary, and their schedule doesn't help out a lot. They have, at UCLA, at Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. A lot of L's I see. Unfortunately, I could see Indiana starting to turn around maybe in the next couple of years because I do think Curt Cignetti's a really good coach. I mean, he has a really proven track record. Just tough spot right now where you are at Indiana. I see 3-9. That's about it. Purdue, same thing. Tough sledding for the Hoosier State teams. Both in the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know how that got to be, but it is what it is. Ryan Walters, second year at the head of the table for Purdue. They do retain Hudson Card back for a second full year. He was third in the Big Ten passing yards a game at 217. Devin McCoby comes in as the now solidified starting running back. So that's going to be good. Yeah. I think they expect him to be the workhorse, get back on track, just constantly improving. He had 811 yards rushing last year. Before that, it was 968. So he has that ability to just kind of stabilize the entire running back room and be counted on. They lose a bunch of talent at receiver. A bunch of transfers leave. They bring in a couple guys from Georgia, from A&M. That'd be like Nylon Morset, CJ Smith from A&M. It'd be Cam Brown. So they're going to need transfers to step up. Same thing defensively. They lose a bunch of guys defensively. They lose their top key guy. That would be Nick Skirton, who got poached by A&M. But they do bring in guys like Nyland Green, Markevius Brown, Will Helt, CJ Madden. So, again, kind of like Indiana, a lot of new transfers. Yeah. Are they going to be able to pan out? Or is it just going to be you're by week 6 and you're still struggling? Because defensively, they really struggled last year. And that's coming from Ryan Walters, a DC who really performed well at Illinois.
Yeah.
I mean, scoring defense, they were ranked 105th. Points per play, 106. Passing defense was 97th in the country. Even offensively, tracking offensively, passing game is going to be where it's at. Ray ran the ball well. Passing offense has got to improve. They ranked 87th in passing offense. Total offense, they were 72nd. And points per play, they ranked 100th. So they got a lot of improvement, and it's going to have to start with Hudson Card playing at a high level. Moving on, it's Northwestern. Remarkably, remember all the craziness that happened before the year started last year with the scandals, the hazing incidents, they kicked the coach out wrongfully, maybe doing so before all the facts were out. All of that happens. This is coming off a 1-11 year. They're picked to win maybe 2 games all year, and they go out and go 8-5. Complete 180.
Yep.
What a job that David Braun did.
One of the best years in the last, I don't know how many years of this program. Like,
It's
genuinely.
That 7-win jump, I have it here, is the best in FBS from 2022 to 2023. For going from 1-11 to 8-5.
Yep.
It's crazy. That started. Oh, good.
They won their bowl game too. Like it's ridiculous. They beat Utah in a bowl game.
Yeah, and now granted, Utah had injury after injury, but still,
yeah. But
beating Utah that's a Utah. I mean, regardless of who's playing for Utah, that is a great win. Now they do bring in a new OC and Zach Lujan, excuse me. He is a proven guy from South Dakota State. They averaged 29 points a game under his, or they're 29-1 under his when he coached. They averaged 34 plus points a game. It's going to be a lot more run pass option. Yeah. Now, the question is, will they have the right quarterback? Because there's a big quarterback battle. The guy that was supposed to be the starter there was Brendan Sullivan. Brendan Sullivan transferred after the spring game to Iowa. Now, he could be in line to start possibly not the start of the year, sometime down the road for Iowa, depending on how maybe poorly Cade McNamara plays. That's for Iowa's to figure out. As far as here, it's going to be a battle it's still a battle between Ryan Hilinski and Mike Wright, who came from Mississippi State.
Yep.
Who comes out of that is to be determined. But you're going to see a lot more, I think, RPO game. That's what they're going to want to try to get to. Offensive line, they allowed a sack on, has to play better. Pass pro, especially. Yeah. They allowed a sack 13% of the time on dropbacks. They're ranked 128th nationally. Not good. And according to 122nd in O-line push, which is like short yard game. Are they getting that push? Not getting it because, I mean, just struggled all around. They do bring back 3 starters on that line, but it needs to be better, like I just said. Like, even the 3 guys that are coming back need improvement because if they want to continue to kind of build where they were, it's going to have to start up front. Pass pro, because you can't be under duress all year long. You're just going to get your quarterback hurt. Offensively, the tight ends are going to need to be better utilized this year. They're going to have a decent wide receiver group, but it's not going to be overly impressive compared to some of the other teams. And I think that's just some of these bottom tier teams. There's some good, but it's just their good's not where everyone else is. And that's just how it happens to be. Defensive line should be a strength, though, for Northwestern. Yeah. They should be able to keep rolling. They bring back all 4 starting linemen, which is great, especially defensively. I'd rather have my defensive guys back, honestly, than offensively. Because I can know I can rely on them to wreak havoc and do their job. They're going to replacing their top 2 corners against a lot of question marks. Same thing with some of these other teams, like I just said. I do see them going 5-7. A little bit of a tough back end of the schedule. Yeah. Just how it kind of plays out. Anything so far? Or we have similar stuff?
Oh, we got some similar stuff. I'll give you my so my last place I have Indiana. I just don't see anything from them this coming year. I just think and that's it. They just have they have a tougher schedule too. I mean, they start off the year easy. Their first 6 games or so, I imagine they should only drop like one or 2 games. And then they play Nebraska, Washington, at Michigan State, Michigan.
I mean,
then they go by at Ohio State, and then they play Purdue.
I mean, even at UCLA week 3, I don't.
That's not fun. Yeah, I don't. The one thing I'll give them is they play FIU, Western Illinois, Charlotte, and then Maryland.
Yeah, even Maryland. Maryland, I think is going to be
that. I mean, Maryland is that tough game at Northwestern. I have Northwestern at my 14 spot because I'm giving them a little bit of credit for last year, but I think they're going to be pretty bad this year, to be honest with you. They play.
I just don't think they have the depth that's just going to hurt them because you lose most of those guys are gone.
Yeah.
And so now you got to have to start it all over.
That's what really my thing with my bottom teams is. I just think they play brutal schedules. Like my number 16, I have Purdue, and I had Purdue at 16. I had them a little bit higher, and then I looked at their schedule, and I was like, man, I mean, that's brutal. I mean, they play Notre Dame, then they go to Oregon State, they play Nebraska, then they go to Wisconsin, go to Illinois, they play Oregon, bye, Northwestern, at Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, then Indiana.
No,
They don't get a break there. They don't get a break
No.
at all. Yeah, like that schedule's like, to be honest with you, because I think they're better than Indiana, but they're probably going to lose more games.
I mean, you might just be running out of steam too.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
like genuinely, yeah. Like that's a brutal schedule.
So 15 through, we'll go 15 through 11 here.
Mhm.
I got Illinois. Illinois brings back Luke Altmaier.
Mhm.
They're trying to rebound. They only won 5 games last year. They went 5-7.
Yeah.
But Luke Altmaier comes back. He should have a bounce back.
Mhm.
He did. He had flashes last year.
Yeah.
But, when those flashes, there was also some downsides. So
Mhm.
I believe he also got hurt last year, some point in the year. So he should be healthy going into next year.
Mhm.
They should have a reliable running back in Caden Fegan,
Mhm.
who ran the ball really well last year. He averaged 100 games.
Yeah.
He had 3 games where he averaged over 100 yards. And
Mhm.
so a lot of physicality, a lot of explosiveness. So that's going to be good. Offensive line has to be better, especially in pass pro. Again, just like Northwestern.
Yeah.
If your quarterback's scrambling for his life, he's going to get hit. He's going to get susceptible to injuries. That's just bound to happen, especially if you can't protect him.
Yeah.
They're replacing 2 of their top receivers, so they're going to need receiver play to step up. Their lead receiver only had 560 yards last year total. So they're going to need, like I said,
They need more from those guys.
Yeah, exactly. The secondary defensively is going to have to step up and be a lot better. They really hurt in total defensive scheme.
Mhm.
So, defensively, they want to blitz a lot, but how bad the secondary was, they just couldn't.
Mhm.
And so then they were stuck just giving up a lot. That really reduced a lot of their pressure rates and negative play rate because, again, they were sitting back, having to kind of keep an eye on what was the secondaries doing or helping out because of how bad they were.
Mhm.
They do lose 2 of their top 3 tackles. Linebacker will be a strength, though. I do think that they will play well. They must be I wrote down they must play well. The key to the success for Illinois, because if they can't, and the secondary's not doing well, you're going to see similar results that happened last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost. Gave 44 to Purdue.
Yeah.
Can't have that. They gave up 34 to Kansas, 30 to Penn State,
48 to Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, you gave up 45 to Northwestern. It can't happen.
It's unacceptable. You can't.
And it's uncommon for a Brett Bielema type defense.
Mm-hmm.
Not common. I see Illinois going 5-7.
Yeah.
Just
that's gonna be fair. I have Illinois at 15 also. I mean, I wanted to give them higher. I just couldn't because I just don't see this team doing much. I mean, even looking at in the transfer portal, they didn't pick up a ton of great pickups either. There wasn't anything crazy that they've done to improve the roster from last year. And their schedule, for the most part, is exactly the same.
Yeah.
I just don't see this team doing anything.
Mm-hmm. My number 14 team, I have UCLA. So UCLA first team at this kind of bottom tier, in my opinion, that's one of the newcomers.
Yeah.
So what I forgot, Eric Bieniemy is the new OC there. Completely forgot that. So he's there, which is great because they need some sort of, I think, offensive-minded guy kind of watching that side. Ethan Garbers is back as the starting quarterback after they did lose Dante Moore last year. TJ Harden should be the running back there. Really explosive guy. He's a home run type hitter. That's awesome. But can we get it on a consistent basis? I think they will. They ran the ball really well last year. They ranked 17th in the country in rushing offense. Explosive rush was 11th in the country. So that's good. They ranked 26 as well, almost 5 yards a carry. The receiver room is going to have to be a area where they're going to need to focus on to make sure they got it. Rico Flores, J. Michael Sturdivant, and Logan Loya are going to be the guys that are going to have to be there. Because keep in mind, remember, Chip Kelly's gone. They lose D'Anton Lynn to USC.
Yep.
Chip Kelly leaves. So this is a completely new group. You have, I forgot to mention that their new coach was, what's his face? His name is in here. You want to look that up real quick for me while I'm.
UCLA's new coach?
Yeah. Freaking, I don't know why I can't find this in here.
Deshaun Foster?
Yes. So Deshaun Foster has his hands full.
Yes.
But offensive line, again, is a start. 4 starters come back. But again, a lot of question marks because they struggled really a lot last year.
Yeah.
It was one of the weakest units of any unit on that team last year. They were 118th in pass protection.
Yeah.
Getting your quarterback under duress, like all these other teams are, is not the recipe. You have got to protect your quarterback. And if you're not, you're going to end up not doing well this year because you can't score points. Can't drive the ball. I mean, heck, I'm seeing it a lot in preseason right now. I mean, these are pros doing it, and they're struggling. And I'm watching quarterbacks just get destroyed.
Yeah.
Because the O-line can't do anything, and they're just pockets collapsing, and then they're done. Defensively, the entire defensive end 2 deep is gone, so they lose all their guys, so their coordinator. They're not good. The interior defensive line, though, should be good. Edge rusher is the question mark. They got to find guys to fill in that spot. They lose a bunch. As like any coaching change, you're going to lose a bunch. You're going to have to refill. The schedule is just not good. They lose 8, and like I said, you lose 8 starters plus new defensive coordinator on defense alone. The schedule is brutal. They're at LSU. That's week 4. They start in Hawaii, by the way. 7:30 kick Eastern. That's a 1 o'clock start. Their time.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like 9 o'clock here, and it's gonna be sunshine and roses in Hawaii. I love it. Anyway, week 4, they're at Death Valley, and then they come home to play Oregon, and then they go to Penn State, and then they go to and then they get Minnesota, and then they got to go to Piscataway to play Rutgers.
Yep.
They got to buy just to go to Nebraska, and then they have to play Iowa back at home. Then they got to go back to Washington, USC, and then finish with Fresno State, which, by the way, is no walk in the park there.
Yeah.
So this is a brutal schedule. I see 3-9 written all over it.
I mean, I could see it. I do like a little bit just because I think UCLA still got some pretty good athletes in there.
Their defense was great last year.
And they had a pretty good transfer pickups, especially last year. They still got a lot of those guys they kept in there somehow. And so I do have UCLA a little bit higher than you, just because I had one team that I think should be worse than I almost forgot them because they're so forgettable in my opinion. But
who is it?
Michigan State.
So I have Michigan State just ranked ahead of them.
Yeah. No, I think we were thinking on the same page on that one. I just think Michigan State's going to be a joke.
So I have them. Only reason why I put Michigan State ahead is because I think Michigan State's schedule is a little more manageable, where they're going to be able to get a few more wins. I have them at 5-7.
Yeah.
Jonathan Smith comes in. He has to resurrect a program that is left for dead.
Yep.
But he does bring in Aiden Childs, who was a 5-star at Oregon State, brings him with him. He brings all 3 running backs come back for Michigan State, which is great.
Yeah.
They're going to need offense. Offense can't be any worse than it was last year. I mean, they were just as bad as Iowa was. 131st in scoring offense.
They lost to Michigan 49-0. I mean, I think that just speaks for itself.
131st in points per play, 128th in total offense. Yards per play was 125th. Their only thing they ranked anywhere in the 60s and below. 63rd in sacks and / attempts a game was 7%. Everything else was in the hundreds. Not good. It can't get any worse, right?
Yeah.
So wide receiver room.
They were the worst team in the Big Ten last year.
Yeah.
Statistically.
The wide receiver room's got to be better.
Mhm.
There's questions at offensive line. They
Yeah.
need to be better. They lose a bunch of guys. They lose ever since they
Mhm.
lost Jaden Reed and they lost Keon Coleman. They have
Yeah.
not. They don't have a single. They didn't have a single guy last year post 100-yard season.
Yep.
Montorie Foster's back. Jaron Glover's back, but they got to step up.
They didn't bring in any transfers there either when it came to that position.
Yeah, well, not in the receiver group. They
Yeah.
did bring Jack Failing over from Oregon State, who was a very good tight end.
Yeah.
A solid tight end, and that's
Mhm.
good. Because now, I mean, I think, especially now, quarterback, tight end, all reliable almost. You bring them, that's good. They do have a new DC coming in, Joe Rossi.
Yep.
I think he comes from Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah.
Yep. So that's going to be good.
That's a
They
good
do
pickup.
have a bunch. They do have some returners coming back at linebacker. 3 of the 6 defensive linemen are back, and 5 of the 6 defensive backs are back. So they do have guys back, which is good. They were able to
Yep.
retain those guys defensively because
Mhm.
defensively they ranked 87th in the country. Pass defense was bad at 88th. Quarterback rating 106th. Explosive pass plays 104th.
Yeah.
Got to be it better. But the fact that they were able to retain those guys for the new coordinator, I think, helps.
Mhm.
But right here, I have it highlighted. Entire secondary's got to be better than it was last year. I mean,
Yeah.
it just has to be. 5 and 7 is what I see, but like they can get wins with FAU, Prairie View, A&M, Boston College. I think they'll get a win. Indiana.
I don't know
Purdue.
about Boston College though. I mean, Boston College is not fun to play at in September. Speaking from
We'll see.
seeing other teams do it, I don't know. I have Michigan State below UCLA for just because this team to me bottomed out last year.
It
Like
did.
the worst you can get. And I think it's going to take more than a year for them to be better than that. I almost debated putting them below like Northwestern and Purdue because like legitimately they lost 2 games where they got blanked and gave up 40 plus points. Like they were just embarrassed routinely on field all year last year. There was not a single game where they looked impressive. Their most impressive win was against FCS Richmond, where they proceeded to not win another game until they squeaked by Nebraska and then squeaked by Indiana.
I do think the quarterback play significantly upgrades with Aiden Childs.
Yes.
So could maybe now you steal another win or two with that? Where you steal some wins last year with that roster. Now you upgrade some. And we've seen what Jonathan Smith's done.
Yeah.
I mean, he took over an Oregon State
Mhm.
team that was just pathetic as what Michigan State is now.
Mhm.
And he was able to turn that around. So I think Jonathan Smith's going to be able to get Michigan State back to
I just think it's going to
relevancy.
take time.
It will take time.
I mean, like, do you put it in perspective?
And I'm putting
To the-
5 and 7 as best case scenario. By
Yeah.
the way, too.
They
That
lost.
is ultimate best case scenario.
They lost to the Big Three in the Big Ten to a combined score of 129-3.
Not good.
That's embarrassingly bad.
Mm-hmm.
Remind, this was a Michigan State team that a couple years ago was trying to make an argument for the college football playoff, where they only lost 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
This was legitimately a team that we were like, this is on the rise. They have bottomed out. And
So
legitimately, I don't know how they can fix it. It's going to take so much time.
Moving on. I'm going to have Minnesota 12th. Minnesota.
Okay.
Darius Taylor is the workhorse back. He's going to be the feature guy.
Mhm.
That's what they're going to have to rely on. They ran the ball 62% of the play time last year, which was about the only thing productive they did offensively. They ranked 66th in yard rushing offense. Scoring offense was bad. They only averaged about 20 points a game. They bring in a new quarterback in Max Brosmer. He's an FCS transfer. He did lead the FCS with over 3,498 passing yards and was a finalist for the Heisman or for the Walter Payton Award, which is like the Heisman equivalent.
Yeah.
So really good in the FCS ranks. Can he take that step? We've seen a few guys do it.
Yeah.
Or will he just kind of be like the other ones that kind of bottom out? That's going to be a question there.
Mhm.
They lose 3 of their top targets on the outside. They do bring in some guys from Georgia and Penn State. So that's
Yep.
going to be a cause for concern there. Will
Mhm.
those guys be able to step up? Offensive line does bring back 4 starters. And
Mhm.
this is a veteran group. All 4 of them are either in their 5th or 6th year. That is really good. Those guys have played a lot of snaps, and it should be a strength up for this team. And if you have a really solid running back and really good O-line play, especially in this where they're playing in Minnesota, by late November, December, you're going to need that. And
Yeah.
if they can take over games, we've seen some teams now recently have success. Just Michigan, Georgia, Washington, just some of the big hitters, Bama.
Mhm.
Like, we've seen when a group has a dominant offensive line, they're
Yeah.
able to have success and take over games, especially in the fourth quarter. You need to
Mhm.
put together a 4-minute drive and run the football. That's what you need. And let's see if
Yeah.
they can step up, because if they can, there we go. Defensively, it should be improved. They do get a new DC in.
Mhm.
He takes over from the FCS ranks as well. He was at James Madison,
Yeah.
where he finished number 2 nationally in scoring. They do bring back 9 starters. That's really good too. They do lose some guys in the secondary, Tyler Nubin, who was
Mhm.
drafted. They do lose a guy, a couple guys up front. They should be able to replace him. They did well in the portal. I don't know.
Yeah.
I never know what to think with Minnesota, because they just seem like just such a middle of the line team, where then they play some games, they win, and then there's some games that you just have no business losing, and they
Yeah.
do every single year. And it's never just one game. It's always like 2 or 3. And I never know. They had that one great year in 19.
Yep. Where they won 10 games.
They won 11 games, I think, but
Yeah, after the bowl game.
and then they were a game away from going to the Big Ten title game, lost to
Mhm.
Wisconsin. But like I never know what to think of it. So I have them going 5-7. They have a tough opener with North Carolina. They do get them at home at least, but like still, yeah, I don't know.
I have them at the same spot as you. I just, with this schedule, which, I mean, they go to Michigan, they play Iowa, they play USC, they play Penn State, play Maryland, they start with North Carolina. It's just not a fun schedule for them.
Mm-mm.
Then they have to end the year at Wisconsin, which is
Yep.
also
And
like
Paul
not
Bunyan.
good. But going to Wisconsin is always the worst for them.
Yeah.
So
And I think Wisconsin's could be really much improved from last year.
Yeah.
So it's just tough sledding again. They're just such a middle of the line team.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Minnesota fans, I don't know if they're going to be fed up or not, because Minnesota is, I just don't know if they're even putting in the resources that is needed, especially now with the NIL.
Not to compete at the highest level, to be
exactly.
They put in the resources.
They put in the
where
resources
they're at right now.
They put in the resources
Mhm.
for the hockey teams.
Yeah,
that's there. That is really good.
Mm-hmm.
But do they? You can clearly tell they're not doing that for football.
Mm-hmm. They put in the resources for a 6-6 program, and you know what?
Yep,
They're getting those results. You can't.
You're putting in. You're getting out what you put in, and that's pretty much what's shown.
And I'll give PJ Fleck the credit, because he, for the last, since he's pretty much walked into this program, has slightly raised the ceiling for what we expect of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're looking at them and we're like, oh, they're not great. But I'm going to be honest with you. Just a couple years ago, we were like, I mean, maybe this team wins 2 games. Like, we did not, Minnesota did not matter at all. I mean, he's raised the profile of that program a bit to where we can sit here and go, why aren't they putting in more money?
Mm-hmm. Number, where are we at? Number 11, I got Maryland.
Yes. Yep,
Maryland is such they're kind of like a similar team with Minnesota, but can have a little more success. But I don't know now where they go from here.
Yeah.
They still don't have they haven't decided who's the starting quarterback is going to be.
Yep.
Because they lost Talia Tagovailoa.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have Billy Edwards.
Big 10 all-time career passing record.
Yes.
Holder.
And they still didn't have much success.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about that. So, they allowed the most sacks,
Yep.
I believe, to any other team. They allowed, or excuse me, backtrack there. The O-line allowed a bunch of sacks, and against the big three in Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, they allowed 12 sacks. So, quarterbacks constantly under duress, especially against the bigger time opponents. They don't have a quarterback settled yet for this year. Billy Edwards and Cam Edge are still deciding that out. They do bring back, or never mind, excuse me, all 5 starting offensive linemen are gone too. So there's that as well. So Loxley's got to figure that out.
Yep.
They do lose their top tight end from last year.
Mm-hmm.
They bring in, or they have, excuse me, let me see. They have Ty Felton and Caden Prather coming back.
Yeah.
So that's going to be good. But, I mean, Preston Howard's going to be the tight end. He's going to have to step up in a big way. I had that written down. A lot of questions offensively.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have a quarterback settled, and we're a week out from game 1 where they got to go play UConn.
Yeah.
Do they have the offensive line figured out? I don't know. Defensively, the line will be a big strength of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have an elite pass rusher figured out. 8 guys on defense are out. Depth's very thin in the secondary. This could be an ugly year, honestly. The schedule, luckily, is favorable.
I was going to say their one saving grace is, for the most part, they kind of have one of the easier schedules in the conference.
That front half of that schedule is their saving grace because you start a year out with UConn, Michigan State, at Virginia, Villanova, and at Indiana before the bye. Yeah. Because after that, I have written down their schedule. I just put L's next to their thing because I was making these records out.
Yeah.
After Northwestern, after that bye week, USC, L. At Minnesota, L. Bye week. Oregon, at Oregon, L. Rutgers, L. Iowa, L. Penn State, L. Terrible back end of the schedule. They're only saving graces. And maybe this is good, that front half of the schedule, because now maybe they can figure things out.
Yeah.
And then maybe help them down the road. I just don't. I see this could be a 6-6 team at best.
Yeah.
And this could easily be a 4-8 team as well. So I don't know. Too many questions for me and they weren't able to run the ball effectively last year with the starters they had on the line. And I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Maryland will shock us both, but that's about
they have they have an above average defense with who knows at the offensive side of the ball. Mm-hmm. Genuinely, we have no idea what the offense. They only return 36% of the offense. It's one of the lowest numbers in all of FBS football.
Yep.
And they don't know who the quarterback. I mean, that's the worst setup you could possibly happen. Within 2 weeks before their first game, they have no idea who their starting quarterback is.
We gotta figure that out.
You're not giving a lot of the guys confidence. I'll say that.
No. All right, moving on. Number 10, I got Washington.
Okay.
So Washington, I have at 10. They go to the title game. They have this magical season.
Mm-hmm.
2 days later, Kalen DeBoer takes over at Bama. Or Saban retires. A couple of days later, Kalen DeBoer gets named the next coach. He's out. He takes Ryan Grubb with him. Ryan Grubb doesn't officially take the job at Bama. He goes back to Seattle, but for the Seahawks. Mm-hmm. So now, throughout that, they bring in Jed Fish, who did a remarkable job turning Arizona around.
Yep.
They bring in a new OC. They lose all 11 starters on the offensive side of the football.
Mm-hmm.
The whole offense is gone. So they got to replace that. They do bring in Brendan Carroll as the OC. He's the son of Pete Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
So, which under his offenses, they posted top 10 national passing stats in both 22 and 23 season. So offense is legit. Do they have the guys now? Luckily, at quarterback, they have one of the best QBs you can have. Will Rogers finished. He's second all time in passing yards at SEC. If he would have stayed there, he probably would have broke Aaron Murray's record.
Mm-hmm.
I honest to God don't know how some of these guys have eligibility still, but they still keep giving him years. I mean,
Yep.
We're going to talk about Big 12 next week. Cam Rising's going into his 7th year.
Mhm.
So anything's possible.
Hey, COVID's crazy, man.
COVID's crazy. Rodgers is going to be more of a pocket passer.
Mhm.
Now, the only thing that could be bad there is that Carroll's system likes to be more of that RPO quarterback moving out of the pocket, doing a lot more of that.
Yeah.
They do have another guy who's their backup right now, DeMan Williams. I could see a thing I wrote down used in packages
Mhm.
where maybe kind of like how some of these other schools have that really good. You have that starter, but you have a guy that's not just he's too good to sit around on the bench. So
Yeah.
maybe they bring him in for Wildcats, RPOs, something like that. Short yardage stuff. I could see that for sure.
Mhm.
Now they do lose Dylan Johnson, obviously,
Yep.
because he just decided not to come back.
Mhm.
So Jonah Coleman comes in from Arizona. He did eclipse over 1,000 yards last year.
Yep.
They also do bring in a guy, Jordan Washington,
Mhm.
as well as Cameron Davis is back, who was sidelined all year last year from injury.
Mhm.
So I think running back room is going to be strong. I do think that
Yeah.
they do replace all 5 of the O-line, and this is similar to Maryland. Do we have the pieces? They lose a bunch of guys on the O-line. They lose 4 of their top receivers. The top 3 guys in Adunze, Polk, and McMillan combined
Mhm.
for over 3,300 yards and 27 touchdowns. That's just them alone. They also lose Jeremy Bernard to Alabama. And they lost both tight ends. So replacing a bunch, I think that's where we're going to have to see some sort of maybe jump. Biggest question mark is obviously going to be the offensive side of the football.
Yeah.
They do bring in a new defensive coordinator and Stephen Belichick. So that's going to be fun to watch. Facial reactions on the sideline are always my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's always.
I mean, defensively, they only have 2 guys coming
Mhm.
back. So they got to replace 9 starters. They do keep, Voy
Only 9.
Tunufini returns, as well as notes tackle Jacob Bandas.
Mhm.
So there's that. He didn't even start last year. Bandas didn't. But starter Alfonso Tupotala is back at linebacker.
Mhm.
I think linebacker might be all right this year. The cornerbacks are going to be also we're going to need to figure out because they lose guys like Dominique Hampton, Jabir Muhammad. That stellar secondary we saw last year is mostly gone.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to figure out what they do there. I see 6-6. A lot of these teams that we're talking about,
they
6
play a
and 6,
brutal
5 and
schedule.
7. Yep.
They play a brutal schedule, especially for this. I mean, they play Michigan, at Iowa, USC, at Penn State, at Oregon. I mean, this is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Tough.
And luckily, the first few weeks, they kind of maybe ease it in a little bit. So, again, kind of like Michigan State. Maybe we'll see what we have.
I mean, I don't know. They got to
Maryland.
They got to play Washington State in week 3.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I mean, they usually dominate. They've dominated Washington State as of late. So, number 9, I got Rutgers.
Okay.
Rutgers. They lose Kyle Monanagai. I totally botched that, and I apologize. Out of the gate, just can't have it. He's gonna have to be the biggest factor. He's the running back. He became the 8th player in Rutgers history since 2012 to notch a 1,000-yard season. He had over 1,200 yards, which led the Big 12 or Big 10, excuse me. So he's going to have to be that guy. Biggest question: pass game. Pass game was terrible. 98th overall in scoring offense. Pass offense was 127th. Yards per attempt, it was only 6.1 yards. That was 123rd. Explosive pass plays, 124th. Terrible. It would just be flat out with you. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It should be Minnesota's Athan Kaliakmanis should be the starter. He transfers from Minnesota. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. They do bring in a couple of FCS transfers. for the out on the outside. So again, you lose some, you bring in some new guys. We'll see
Yeah.
how that works out. They have to find a solid tight end. They don't have one yet.
Mhm.
That's going to be something they're going to need to figure out. Because everyone you need to have a good tight end, at least someone you can count on, maybe just to throw one when you're under duress and
Yeah.
just get a couple yards. Defensively, they were pretty good last year, actually 34th in the country in scoring defense. Negative
Mhm.
plays was the big problem, though.
Yeah.
Only 6%. That's 122nd. Just weren't getting those negative plays, sacks, loss of yards on runs,
Mhm.
all that. They got to improve there. Most of the stuff, though, pretty good.
Yeah.
Passing defense was pretty solid, top 10 in the country. 4 all Big Ten guys return,
Mhm.
which is really good, and 8 starters back.
Yeah.
And with a guy that actually, so that doesn't even count the guy, that doesn't include Tyrene Powell, who injured himself 8 games into the year last year. So that really is 9.
Mhm.
That's really good. They do have to replace a defensive tackle, but I do think the linebacker duo is going to be really strong.
Yep.
Secondary should be good because they keep all 3 of their guys in the safety spot. And again, I mean, when you were already 10th in the country in pass defense and you keep in all those guys,
Mhm.
they should be solid.
Yeah.
The issue for me is, and I see they go 8-4, which is good because they don't. I mean, even when they don't have to play Michigan, they don't have to play Ohio State, they don't have to play Oregon, they don't have to play Penn State, and they don't have to play Iowa. That's
I mean,
a really
they
pretty
skip
favorable
out.
schedule.
They skip out pretty much everybody but one team in my top 6.
Yeah, and I believe their over under is 6.5. So I have them going 8-4.
I think they could do it easily.
I think
Mhm.
Shiano and the guys are going to take a build from last year. They went 7-5
Yeah.
last year. I think
Yep.
they can get some solid wins here. I think
so too.
Now they do have to go to Virginia Tech,
Mhm.
which I do think they'll lose, but I think they beat Washington.
Yep.
I think they can beat UCLA, Minnesota, Maryland, Illinois, and Michigan State.
Yeah. I think they can do all the.
Yeah.
I mean, they start out the season pretty easy too, FCS, and then they play Akron. I mean, not to discredit the Zips, but I don't think they're beating. So my thing is I have Rutgers at the 8 spot for me, just because I like their schedule and the amount of starters they have returning is really good for me because they're pretty much just bringing back a lot of those guys. I really like what Greg Schiano has done at Rutgers so far. I mean, this program was dead. Like, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, this program was dead. In 2019, they won 2 games, and it was Liberty and UMass.
Oh, not good.
They got blown out by every other team they played. They lost to Michigan 52-0. Ohio State 56-21. I mean, they were just brutally bad, and he's turned them into a team where we can sit here and we can go, Rutgers, that's not bad.
That's not a given win.
Yeah.
Like, that's not an automatic W. Like,
Yeah.
that's where you want to be, especially for teams on building back.
Exactly.
My just thing is, I could see a spot where this is a team where again performs really well offensively or defensively.
Yeah,
but with a lot of question marks. Just keep it just never get solved.
I would just be worried in this like stretch after the bye when they go at Virginia Tech, Washington, at Nebraska, Wisconsin, UCLA, USC. Of just by the time they get to USC, they're just injured and they're exhausted, and then they hit that bye week and then they just fall apart. That would be my only worry with this team, is because that's the toughest part of their schedule right there in the middle, and it's pretty tough. I mean, for Big Ten, it's not that tough, but for this team, that's a pretty tough stretch. That'd be my only fear for this team. But other than that, I actually legitimately think this team could win 8 games.
Yeah, for sure. My next team I have is USC at 8.
Okay.
So USC brings in a new DC, D'Anton Lynn, who comes from UCLA. New quarterback starting this year, Miller Moss, after they lose Caleb Williams. The big questions for me with USC is Pass pros got to get better.
Mhm.
They allowed a sack 7% of the time, and even when they weren't allowing a sack, they were getting bailed out because Caleb Williams was running around for his life, pulling the rabbit out of his butt, making random, just magical plays everywhere. Miller Moss is the guy, but I don't think they're going to need the rushing attack to be better. They were 92nd in rush offense, not good.
Yeah.
And again, that's because defense was terrible, and they were forced to just throw the ball a bunch of games because, again, they needed score points. I mean, just think about it. They went, what'd they go, 7-5 last year?
Yeah.
8-5, maybe?
8-5, yeah.
They went 8-5 last year. They were third in the country in scoring offense. They scored 42 points a game and 8-5. That LSU going 9-3 or 10-3 last year.
Yeah.
With a bowl game win is just remarkably just makes your head scratch because there's no reason that should ever happen. And it did because that's how terrible the defense was.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, defensively, I would hope that they see an improvement with the new DC coming in.
Yep.
I mean, he took UCLA's 92nd in scoring to 14th, 15th, and 19th while he was there.
Yeah.
So you're going to see improvement there. I mean, you can't get any worse. 121st in scoring defense.
Yeah.
They were 119th against the run. They were 103rd against the pass. Average quarterback rating was 150. That's 119th ranked, baby. But you just can't. Now, they do bring back 69% of their defense, which can be a good thing. Room for improvement.
Yep.
Especially on the D line. Bear Alexander's back. They bring in Nate Clifton, who posted almost 8 sacks at Vanderbilt. Jamil Muhammad returns, as well as a couple of top 50 prospects.
Yeah.
To kind of fill in that other spot, which is going to be good. Linebacker, they bring in a bunch of guys, including Eric Gentry, Easton Mascarenas Arnold from Oregon State, and then Mason Cobb needs to improve because 25% of missed tackle rate is not going to help you out.
Yeah.
And they need him because they're already too many questions. You can't have your guys who played last year continue to be liabilities. And so he's got to improve. He's not the only one, too. That's just one guy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of them. But the secondary should be okay. Again, it can't get any worse, but they do bring in a couple good guys out of the portal, like Grady Vance, DeCarlos Nicholson, is just to name a few.
Yeah.
They also bring in from UCLA himself, Kamari Ramsey and John Humphrey. So we'll see if that helps some because,
and
I think
Akili Arnold too.
Yes. So we'll see. I think Lincoln Riley for the first time is stressing defense more than he is offense.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what you have to do. You have to just have a shift in mindset. Like, listen, I can't continue to go out and give up 35 points a game and expect to do anything. So I'm going to do the best that I can to bring in the guys that can effectively run this side of the ball and play the best. I'm going to try to put out the best 11 that can just cut that in half, and that would be fine. They cut that in half, and they have the same kind of deep offense that they had last year.
Yeah.
This is a playoff-type team if they do that. But we'll have to see it because it's a lot of talk. We can talk about it all night, but until you see it,
yeah.
We're gonna boy, they get a great test week 1. They get LSU. Two teams that couldn't stop water, or they couldn't stop anybody.
Yep.
I mean, they were pouring gasoline to try to put out a fire. That's how bad it was. So, I mean, it could be over under in that game. I think 62.5 right now. So we could see we could see some fireworks that night in Vegas.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll say this. I have USC a little bit higher than you. I have them at 5, above a couple others. Only thing with them is I like what they've done on the defensive side a lot with bringing in Lynn as a defensive coordinator because he led some really good defenses.
Yeah.
at UCLA, and then he brought in
He
a
did.
lot of talented guys, along with the fact that USC's problem last year wasn't the athletes; it was the schemes. The schemes were weird. They, for some reason, gave a ton of just cushion to. It was a horrible system,
Yep.
and I believe it's more scheme for them than athletes. And they brought in even more guys for depth. And to be honest with you, they kind of have one of the easiest Big Ten schedules. I think they play 4 tough games this season, and
Yeah.
2 of them are non-conference games.
I see most realistically 6-6 though.
I don't know. Because I look at this schedule
Until I
and-
see
and I see
a
that they play. There's 4 tough games to me, and it's LSU, Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame. The rest I see are
Wisconsin?
completely winnable. I'm not high on Wisconsin. I have Wisconsin
At
9,
Michigan?
dude. I have Wisconsin at number 9.
I think Nebraska is going to be a lot improved. Notre Dame at the end of the year.
Yeah, they got
I see something defensively.
I had Notre Dame at as one of their 4 tough games. Yeah, but
Nebraska and Wisconsin, I think, are tough ones.
Nebraska, they got to go to California. It's a little bit tougher for them. Same with Wisconsin.
We haven't seen an environment that is worthy.
I'm not saying environment. I'm just saying them physically going out there.
Although I want to say they come off. I thought they came off a bye.
Nebraska.
Yeah, they go. So Nebraska is coming off a bye before they even go to USC.
Okay.
So that helps right there.
Yeah.
But again, it's just until I see anything defensively that remotely looks like defense, and they can play that at a high level.
Yeah.
This team isn't going to go anywhere.
I understand.
All right. Let's see. We're at 7 now. So we got Wisconsin for me. I got Wisconsin. Okay. Here's a fun one for you. So Tanner Mordecai is not there anymore, but last year he got hurt. He would miss 3 games. Regardless of that, Iowa had more touchdown passes than he did in the regular season. Iowa was dead last in about virtually every passing category you could think of. So that's got to get better. I think it will. Taylor Van Dyke comes in. If he can cut the turnovers down.
Are you talking about Wisconsin?
Yes.
I think you said Nebraska.
Wisconsin.
Okay.
Tyler Van Dyke comes in. And hopefully they can kind of keep the turnovers in check.
Yeah.
And instead of playing hot and cold football all year long, he stays hot. Second year under Phil Luongo, or at least as a whole, Phil Luongo's second year with the system. And I think that might help because I think a lot of people thought that because how much success Luongo has, where he's been, that they would just automatically start doing well, and they didn't. And it really hurt. I mean, they were 93rd in scoring offense. So I think that's going to improve. Chez Mellusi, remember they were out. He got banged up last year too, so they were injured a lot. A lot of key positions were hurt. So he's the starting guy. I think he's going to be that explosive piece that they were missing last year. So I look to see this Wisconsin team bounce back offensively. I mean, Will Pauling's back. They bring in also, Bryson Green is also there. I think receiver room's got to be better, but I think better quarterback play is going to help. And the even better part, offensive line is going to be, I think, rock solid. They got 4 guys coming back. They were, now, cool little fun fact for you, though. They went 24 years, though, in a row with all Big Ten offensive linemen. They haven't had one of the past 2 years. I do think you're going to see a much better group, though. As far as, they were 33rd in sack rate. So, their pass pro was solid.
Yeah.
I just think another year now with all these guys back is going to be big. Defensively, secondary's going to be good. Linebacker groups should be fine.
Yeah.
I think defense is going to be good. And now your second year, and we've seen this, and Fickle's a defensive guy. Second year with Fickle, I think this team is going to be much better from where they were last year. I think if they stay healthy across the board, they should be fine. The big guys in the secondary, though, Latu and Holloman, are going to have to play really well.
Yeah.
But if they do, that should be big time. Now, the one thing defensively, and it kind of goes with their schedule. So their schedule, 3 of their 5 biggest games of the year are at home, which is awesome because they get Bama at home, you get Penn State at home, you get Oregon at home. You do have to go to USC, and you got to go to Nebraska. Now,
And
defensive
Iowa.
line's yes. So defensive line's a big question mark.
Mm-hmm.
These teams you're going to be playing this year, are you going to be able to get pressure? That's going to be a make or break because you get Jalen Milroe coming in. You have to play Jalen Milroe. You got to play Dylan Gabriel. You have to play Miller Moss. You got to play Drew Aller, Dylan Raiola. Like these guys will burn you to a T if you cannot get pressure on them. And you got to be able to contain them as well. So we'll see if they can do that. If they do, I see 9-3 as the best case scenario for me.
I'm just not as high on them as you are, just because I'm not as.
I was high on them last year. Remember,
you were high on them last year. Yeah, you were high on them last year too, and I don't see great things with Tyler Van Dyke as a quarterback, just because he has been so consistently turnover prone since that 2021 campaign where he was great. Since then, he's just been turnover prone. He's had injury problems. He's just been kind of a mess, and I don't really see that improving in Wisconsin. They got kind of half of the staff coming, or not staff, of players coming back on the offensive side, which doesn't really help for me because it's kind of just, to me, it seems like it's a mess and they're not being able to pick things right. I still think they need another year to really build that offense because they're completely swapping the entire way that Wisconsin plays football. Like it's a completely different way to play football. They're trying to install in that system, and I think it still needs to get like figured out. I think there's obviously a lot of holdover, just like the players themselves who were recruited specifically for this run-heavy offense that relies on running backs who are going to put up incredible all-time Big Ten numbers, which they did for 20 years. That's all they did. That's Wisconsin football is good defenses, great running backs, and quarterbacks. They get some passes in there, but they're changing that, right? So to me, I'm just like, this team is still a little bit of ways. I have them at my number 9 spot, just because their schedule's not that bad, but I still think like playing Alabama is not a great confidence booster. Then
that's a complete toss-up game for me. I have no idea what to think of that game.
I think they're going to get smacked around, to be honest.
You think?
Because I think Alabama is going to be coming off. I think they're going to be ready for this game. It's going to be really the first time they've played an out-of-conference game, not in the South, since God knows when.
That's not a neutral site.
Exactly. And to me, this is really a game that's going to be a game where they're going to be really proving that Alabama's not dead. This is not the end of an era. So I think they'd smack around. They're going to smack around Wisconsin. And then from there, I mean, USC,
so
Penn State, Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska. I just don't love their schedule for them and just the way that it's like built for them.
So Bama's a 9.5-point favorite right now at Wisconsin. That's a noon kick. So I don't know. I think that might be a closer game than people think. Because
I don't know.
We'll see.
It all depends. It all depends. We'll see how Alabama looks to start the year. But I mean, I'm not very high on Wisconsin. I wasn't very high on them last year either. I mean, we talked about this. We disagreed very heavily on Wisconsin. But
I mean, Bama has to play, I think, USF week 2, which
that's not easy.
No, I mean, it should be one of the better teams coming from the group of 5. And then I think Camp Randall. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I think, though, Wisconsin, I don't know. We've seen this Luke Fickell team, so they've taken he has a pretty good record of taking that year 2 jump.
Yeah.
I mean, they get the bye right after. I think they'll take care of USC. Purdue at Rutgers, Northwestern. That's a nice stretch right there.
Yeah.
Penn State at home is going to be tough at Iowa. And then, the the bottom back, the final 3 stretch, not the best, but
Mhm.
manageable, I think.
Yeah.
But I have Nebraska at 6. Dylan
I have
Raiola
them
is
at
going to be
7.
the guy. Okay. So
I
I
have
have
them at
Dylan
7.
Raiola.
We
Good.
pretty much agree on this, though.
Yeah. So Dylan Raiola is the guy there. Played
Mhm.
out really well in the spring game. They got him to flip from Georgia. His dad was a legend there. Now he's the next guy.
Mhm.
Is he the guy that helped get them over? They've been searching for a quarterback with competent play
Yeah.
for a while now. Is he the guy that can do it? We'll see. As far as help goes, they get Ramir Johnson. He's going to be the projected starter.
Yep.
Gabe Urban's also there, and Emmett Johnson as well. So they kind of got a three-headed committee going.
Yeah.
Offensively, you get Malachi Coleman, enters his second year. You get Isaiah Garcia Castanda back
Yeah.
after he got hurt last year. You do bring in a couple guys from the portal as far as Isaiah Nair and Jamal Banks goes. So they're going to have weapons, I think, which is going to be good. But tight end wise, the tight end room's got to stay healthy. Thomas Fedone, who's back, was injured most of the year last year. So he's going to be coming back from injury. Can they stay healthy? Because if they do, it's just another weapon. They get 4 starters back on the line, plus another transfer. So a veteran transfer. So that's going to be a solid group. I mean, offensively, it has to get better.
Yeah.
Bottom third and scoring offense. They were okay rushing the ball, running it. The rushing attack was fine. Passing offense was terrible.
Yeah.
Explosive pass plays really lacked in that department. Is this the offense that can do it? We're going to see. They lost a bunch of close games last year. They turned the ball over a bunch in critical time. It's got to get cleaned up on that side of the football. If it does, they're going to win the games. If they don't, they're not. Defensively, they should be good. They keep White back, their defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Which is really good because a lot of people thought he might look at the UCLA job because that was his alma mater. But they keep him.
Yeah.
They also bring back 8 starters, and that was already a really good group. That was 13th in scoring defense, 40th in pass D, and 9th against the run. So a really good group. Linebackers is the one spot where if they can replace that, they should be okay. They do lose 2 of their top starters last year. So if they can, we're going to have to see if they can kind of reload in that department. But other than that, I mean, this should be a really good, a D-line that's really solid and a defense in total that's going to be really good. I see 9-3 on the record.
Yeah.
7-0 possible to start the year. Those first 7 weeks, very good for if you're a Nebraska fan, looking at just kind of mapping your way through. I mean, Colorado's the big one. Week 2, you get them at home. But then other than that, Northern Iowa, UTEP, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers for the bye. But then you get the back half. You get at Ohio State, at USC, Wisconsin, Iowa. I mean, they can navigate this. It's a 9-3 year, I think.
I agree with you. This is the way I see it is their biggest problem last year was quarterback. And what's the biggest thing Matt Rule went out and did is he grabbed the best possible guy they could get for this job.
Yep.
You get a guy, I mean, he looked great in the spring game. Obviously, the spring game, it's just a spring game. But compared to the guys they've had, I mean, Jeff Sims turned the ball over 6 times in 2 games.
Terrible.
He fumbled snaps. It was horrible. They just had guys who could not stop turning the ball over. Yep. You bring in a guy who fits everything you'd want in a quarterback, has a great arm, and as long as he just doesn't turn the ball over, they win their first 6 games guaranteed. They go into the
100%.
bye week 6-0, making a bowl game, ending their bowl drought streak. That's the goal. That's the best. The best case scenario is they win their first 6, and then they lose 2-3 of their last 6. Because I mean, outside of Ohio State and Iowa, I think those other 4 games are they're games that they could really be competitive in.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I don't think they're going to Ohio State and winning. Who knows? Actually,
What if they do?
I mean, they have the defense for it.
Husker Nation all the way.
And with Iowa, you never know if because Iowa could just come out and just not be able to move the ball at all and just lose because they physically
Iowa can't
score.
move the ball anyway, but they'll find a way to win. That's the funny part.
Yeah, I mean, but with how good Nebraska's defense was last year, and the fact that they should only be improving, really, their defense could be right up there with Iowa's in terms of just like the talent on there and the ability to stop teams. So I mean, to me,
we have seen Matt Rule second-year teams, whether it was at Baylor, at Temple, have had big time jumps.
I think a best case scenario, this team could win 10 games.
I mean, this could be up. They're one of my sleeper teams for the playoff.
Yeah. So, I didn't even think about them, but yeah, they could really put themselves in a good conversation if everything goes right. And I think it very well could.
So, all right, moving on.
Yep.
I got Michigan at 5. Michigan has one starter coming back offensively, and that is their tight end, Colson Lovelace.
Yep.
They replace 4,200 snaps worth of offensive linemen, so they get replaced with a whole offensive line. I expect Alex Orji to start. I don't know if they've officially named a starter yet because Jack Tuttle's also been there. But regardless of their quarterback, what they need to do is know how to hand the ball off because they have Donovan Edwards in the backfield, and he's going to have to be a difference maker this year.
Yeah.
Because the wide receiver room, I have questions about. Tight end, I have no problem out with Lovelace. But
yeah,
the engine is going to have to be through Edwards. And if they can do that, and the offensive line can be steady, they should be okay. Now, I do worry with the schedule how soon they start playing guys. I mean, they got Fresno State, which is no walk in the park. They are, I think, 20-point favorites, but I mean, maybe Fresno State challenges some. I don't think so. But then Texas comes to town.
Yeah.
And they're right there. It's and Texas is going to be able to stop the run. So we're going to have to see. Defensively, they're going to be good. They're going to be really good. Defensive line's going to be elite. Mason Graham's back. They bring in Kenneth Graham, who's back. Derek Moore, Josiah Storter back up in the front.
Yeah.
I mean, they combined that duo alone, combined for 10.5 sacks. So that's going to be fine. The linebacker room is where they're going to need to be able to fill because they lose Junior Colson and Michael Barrett. So if they can refill there, I think they'll be fine. They do bring in a couple good transfers.
Yeah.
The secondary is going to be really good. Will Johnson is possibly the best defensive back in America, or at least up there. Rod Moore and Makari Page are there. It's going to be good. Offense, I'm going to be worried about with all the turnover.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, just how much, they lose guys like Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson, who took up 74% of all the receiving yards. So, a lot of questions offensively. I'm not worried defensively at all. I think defensively they're going to be outstanding again.
Yeah.
And we're going to see Texas comes to town week 2. Let's see. Can that D line get to Ewers?
Yeah.
They can and make his life nightmare. It's going to be a good day for Michigan.
Yeah.
They can't. We'll see. Now, because Texas is now down without CJ Baxter.
Yep.
I think the running back room is going to be fine, though. It's not going to be. It's not going to be CJ Baxter, but they have guys. But I think Michigan's going to take a step back, though. As all good teams do. First year with Sherrone Moore fully at the helm. I think 8-4. I see Texas. I see
Texas. Similar. I see similar. To be honest.
think they. Honestly, I could see them going to Washington and losing.
I don't know about Washington, but
this is. It's coming off 4 straight home games, and then they got to go all the way over to Washington right
Yeah.
before the bye week, and then Oregon, and then Ohio State.
hmm
So 8-4, 9-3.
I think they go 9-3. I have them as my number 6 team, behind USC and Iowa, just because my questions with them rely on coaching, the returning guys for offense, especially because almost everybody's gone, and if there is the possibility of sanctions against Michigan, like losing possible coaches or people having to sit just because there's questions around the program at the moment.
Mhm.
I kind of was like a little bit lower on them. They got it's a culture change in Michigan.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a different look team. Even though this was the national champions, they do have a lot of guys on the defensive side at least coming back a decent amount. But I don't love this Michigan team going into next year.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very good chance that if they look bad against Texas, it snowballs.
Maybe.
Because like I could see a situation in which if Texas looks good and they're able to slightly light up and put up points,
I mean, we saw that last
Yeah.
year. Texas went to Bama
yeah.
and beat it by double digits, but Bama was able to rebound. So,
But they're coached by Nick Saban.
yeah.
It was like, it was one of Nick Saban. This is Sharon Moore's first head coaching full-time position.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a program that's going through a lot of turmoil internally with like the accusations going on about the cheating. There's just things going on inside of Michigan
Mm-hmm.
that to me make it seem more complicated than just, oh, there's a lot of guys coming back on defense. They recruit for the most part kind of middle of the pack actually. But they recruit fine. Their defense is going to be good again for the most part, but I have questions about offense for them.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. I mean, because what happened, I mean, the offensive line may not pan out, and then they just kind of are middle of the pack all year round in that department. So
I still think they're one of the upper Big Ten teams. Don't get it twisted. I just think like
that D line, that defense is going to be able to keep them in games all year.
Oh, for sure. I got questions when it comes to that quarterback room, especially. And I didn't think their quarterback last year was even that great in JJ McCarthy. I never was blown away by a single thing he did last year.
No,
not a single game he played. And he got drafted 10th overall. So I mean, what am I to say? Who am I to say?
Exactly. All right. So as we round out here, we get into the top 4. I got Iowa.
Yep. Me too.
Iowa won 8 of 10 of their games last year while gaining under 300 yards.
Yep.
This is outstanding stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you just kind of look back at these stats and just think about that, they won 10 games last year. 6. Yeah, they went 10-4 last year. How bad they were offensively. And we talked about a little bit about them last episode. For some reason they got brought up. They ranked 132nd in scoring offense, 130th in points per play. Total offense, it gets better. 133rd. They were 133rd in yards per play. Well, maybe they ran the ball better. No, 109th in rushing offense, 119th in yards per carry. O-line run push, 131st. Explosive rushes, maybe they got a couple there. Nope. 118th. Passing offense, maybe 130th. Yards in attempt, 133rd. Quarterback rating was 91 average, 133rd.
Mm-hmm.
Touchdown interception ratio, 125th. Sacks in attempt, 9% of the time, 106. What's that tell you? Offensive line needs to be better.
Yep.
Explosive pass plays. Maybe they hit a couple deep shots every once in a while. Nope. 3.8, 131st.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with all that, they did have a bunch of injuries last year.
Yeah.
Especially at the quarterback position. Cade McNamara going down. We'll see if he's able to bounce back. He struggled some in the spring game. They bring in Brendan Sullivan from Northwestern, like I said earlier. Is this a scenario where maybe they're trying to find a way to make Sullivan the guy? We'll see. That's to be determined for later. Yeah. Now, they do have a 3 running back committee. And All these guys are coming back. Some of them from injury, like Caleb Johnson is.
Mm-hmm.
LaShawn Williams is also there. And also Patterson as well, who flashed from time to times. I do think LaShawn Williams is going to be the head guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he earned offensive MVP last year as far as for Iowa.
Yeah.
I could see where Caleb Johnson, maybe him and Williams are kind of like 1-2. I mean, they bring in a new OC, so that's good.
Yeah.
So they get rid of Brian Ferentz because he failed to
Do anything.
meet the AD's expectations.
Well, I mean, let's be honest with it. He failed
Yeah.
to do anything on offense. There is not a single stat outside of returning production where they were not in the bottom, like they were not over 100 in rankings. Not a single offensive stat, but returning production.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest with ourselves. Is that great that the guys who were that bad on offense are mostly coming back for this season?
I mean,
I think that's a legitimate question.
I mean, they won 10 games last year, though. So
not because of the offense.
No, but who cares?
If anything, that offense is the reason why they didn't win more games.
Offensive line, like I said, it's got to play better. They do get 4 of the 5 back. So we'll see. So you have a veteran group.
Mm-hmm.
They do bring in a transfer from Ohio State on the wide receiver spot and Seth Anderson as well.
Mm-hmm.
That would be for the in what's his face? His name is back at the tight end spot. Leachy. So I think they're going to have some better weapons this year on the outside. Again, whatever you say about that is to be determined. It's kind of like USC playing defense. Can Iowa play offense? I mean, if this offense is just, let's say, 90th in the country, and that defense is still where it is, they're going to win 10 games again.
They're a playoff team.
100%.
I'm being honest, they're a playoff team, without a doubt, in my opinion.
And their schedule actually is really nice this year anyway, but I'll get to that in a second. In terms of yardage defensively, they have allowed 400 yards or less in 28 straight games. That is the longest streak in the FBS. Here's your padlock stat for the night. They were 4th in the country in scoring defense, 17th against the run, 5th against the pass. The couple areas they did struggle. The one area they did struggle was negative play rate.
Yeah.
So they weren't getting as much sacks, pressures, or those loss of yardage plays as they wanted to. That was only 8% of the time, like 96. But everything else is top 20 kind of type stuff. So
I mean, they were number 1 in the country in stopping explosive passing plays. That's crazy.
And outside of Cooper DeJean, everyone's back on that D group.
Yep.
So I expect a stellar linebacker group led by Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins. I mean, one of the best linebacker duos in the country. DeJean's gone, but Quinn Schulte and Jamara Harris are going to be there.
Yeah.
On the back end. This is going to be a really solid group again on defensively. I have no issues there. D-line, maybe a question or two. We'll see. Only because they do lose Logan Lee and Joe Evans through graduation, so they're gone.
Yeah.
But outside of that, this defense is going to be outstanding again. And, Phil Parker is still there on the defensive side, calling the shots. So I have no issues. And schedule-wise, Illinois State win, Iowa State win, Troy win, at Minnesota should be a win. They screwed it up last year.
Yep.
Although, to be fair, there was the punt return that they got hosed on was piss poor. Bye. Now, at Ohio State, I think they lose.
Yep.
Washington, I think, is a win. Michigan State's a win. Northwestern's a win. Wisconsin, I think they fall in that one, possibly. I do think that. At UCLA, Maryland, Nebraska, I think are all wins. I mean, this is a 10-2 team, in my opinion.
To me, this is a one-loss team. This is a team that loses to Ohio State and that does not look.
And that's and I put the L next to Wisconsin, and that's more of like a 50-50 type game.
For you, yeah, I know because you're a Wisconsin guy.
Well, no, I think the only reason I said that because I'm like, there's no way they really go 11-1. Like they always find a way to lose one other game.
I get that.
So
The only game where I could see where they could do that is like the Nebraska game at the end of the season too.
yeah,
Is one where I'm like, oh, because Nebraska has obviously not as good as Iowa, but they also have a great defense,
Yeah.
and they probably will actually have the ability to score the ball though. So I mean, Iowa would be able to stop them all day, but I mean, if Nebraska would be able to get like one or two good, drives in the game, that's how you beat this team.
I think the ceiling or the floor for this team is 8-4, 9-3.
Yeah.
Best case scenario is 11-1.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, best case scenario is an undefeated regular season because their defense is good enough to hold Ohio State's offense in check.
And I do have question marks at the quarterback spot for Ohio State with Will Howard.
Me too.
He's a good quarterback, but if I was able to shut down the run, and I'll get to Ohio State here coming up, but I mean, 12-0 would be insane. I don't think they have the offense to do it that big of a turnaround.
Yeah,
but I think 10-2 is right there.
But with their schedule, it is favorable enough that is not out of reach.
Yeah,
and that's incredible. But I think we should move on because it's getting kind of long now.
Yeah. All right. I'll run through these top three. I got Penn State.
Yep, me too.
Ohio State and Oregon.
Yep.
Penn State, can Aller, my biggest questions are, can Aller make the big year 2 jump?
Mm-hmm.
RPO game's going to have to be huge. They bring in Andy Kolenicki from Kansas. He likes to do that a lot. Did that with Jalen Daniels, excuse me. At Kansas, they have to replace 3 starters on the line. The wide receiver room must get better. Julian Fleming's there. I mean, he's going to be the number 1 guy, obviously, but they have the great running back duo in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen.
Yep.
They're going to have to play really well. Defensively, the diva line and linebacker group I think they're going to have to dominate again. And they do have to replace the cornerback trio that they had from last year. So if they can do that, I think they'll be okay. They do bring in AJ Harris, and Jalen Kimber from Florida and Georgia. So those are going to be those guys. I think they lose week 1, honestly, to West Virginia. I think they're going into a snake pit in that one. I think West Virginia is catching some shade, they're not getting I think they're getting overlooked some. I think they lose that game. Outside of that, though, I think Penn State goes 10-2. I think they beat Ohio State this year. I think finally they get over some sort of hump against Ohio State. I think they go to Wisconsin though and lose. I see 10-2. As far as
Wisconsin.
Listen, I told you 9-3 is Wisconsin. I'm telling you.
We'll see.
At Wisconsin though, that's what I mean. If it was in Penn State, okay. At Wisconsin, I'm gonna take that. I got Oregon. I'm just gonna run through these real quick. I got Ohio State at 2. Will Howard just got named the starter. So he beats out Devin Brown. The run game is led by Quinshon Judkins, who transfers in from Ole Miss. Travion Henderson comes back. That's going to be elite running back duo. They're going to have to be the guys because they can't allow Howard to be Superman. They can't make him do that. That's just not who he is. So if they do that, they're going to be in deep trouble because Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith are going to be really good wide receivers.
Yeah,
but they don't have that day 1 draft guy throwing them the ball. Will Howard was getting benched for Skylar Howard. Or not Skylar Howard. Avery Johnson. Skylar Howard, by the way, shout out Kansas State legend right there. But Avery Johnson, I mean, he was getting benched for him, and Avery Johnson's a good quarterback. But I mean, you're the starter down at Ohio State. You were getting benched last year a few times.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest question mark. I wrote down QB's biggest mystery. Defensively, they're going to be one hell of a unit. Secondary returns 4 starters, and they bring in Caleb Downs, who's possibly the best player in the country. All 4 defensive linemen return. That includes Tua Maloau, Tyleik Williams, Ty Hamilton in the front, and Jack Sawyer. I mean, that's right there. Biggest question, though, they lose Eichenberg and they lose Steel Chambers.
Yeah.
Can they replace the linebacker group? That's going to be where I'm at. Outside of that, 10-2, I think they fall to Oregon and Penn State. Oregon is my top team in the Big Ten. Dylan
Yep.
Gabriel is going to be the starter. They bring in Dante Moore as well from UCLA. He's going to be the backup.
Mhm.
They lose Bucky Irving. They lose Franklin on the outside as well. Troy Franklin. But Jordan James is one heck of a guy. He played a bunch last year too.
Mhm.
So he's going to be the day one guy on the running back spot. Wide receiver room's going to be really good. Tez Johnson's back. Trayshawn Holden's back. And they bring in Evan Stewart just for fun.
Yep.
And that's just some of them. They brought in a couple other guys that are going to be really good wide receivers. The offense is going to be elite again, I wrote down. Offensive line is going to be legit. That's a Joe Moore award-winning caliber offensive line. And that is only with 3 starters coming back. Defense. I want to see the D-line create more negative plays. I wrote this down.
Yeah.
Because they didn't get that enough last year. They ranked 88th defensively in negative play percentage. So if they can do that, I think they're going to be okay. They're going to be good. They can get over that because the linebacker room is going to be really good with Bossa, Jacobs, and Uyangale. And the secondary is reloaded and ready to roll. I mean, Jabir Muhammad, I think, is the best defensive back for the Pac-12 last year. But just for fun, too, they bring in Kobe Savage from Kansas State. They bring in Brandon Johnson from Duke. Tysheem Johnson's also there. Kyrie Jackson departed. T's and P's to him. And Cam Alexander also comes in from UTSA. I mean, these are studs across the board. 12-0. I think Oregon's going to go perfect.
No, I agree with you. I think what best describes Oregon for me is that they are the only team in the entire country, not country, but Big Ten at least, where you can sit here and go, they have a top 10 offensive and defensive unit.
Yep.
And I think there's nobody else who can make that 100% today can make that statement. No. Everybody else, one side of the ball, they have a clear flaw. There's something that they just aren't doing right at the moment. Obviously, Iowa offense, USC defense, Ohio State's offense, Penn State's offense, Michigan offense. Like, there's so many of these teams where they're perfect, and then they just have the biggest flaw in the world that makes you go, Oregon doesn't have that. And the recruiting, like nobody else. They're hitting the transfer portal like nobody else. This, to me, this is a team that this is a team that can win the Big Ten every year going forward for the next 10 years.
That would be one heck of a thing if they could do that.
I mean, but with the way that they built this program.
Yeah. I mean, if Dan Lanning in that group continue to just be relentless and just keep on going on the recruiting trail, I mean, I don't know about every year for 10 years, but they will be competing at that level for a long time. I think they're minus 600, I think, to not make the playoff. So they're pretty much a lock anyway. But that's the rankings. They usually always go longer because we're just kind of previewing them. But we'll move on.
This is the biggest conference, most amount of teams.
For sure. So we're going to speed through the rest of the ones. Then we'll rattle off our sleeper teams. Yeah. But championship prediction. So I had Penn State beating Ohio State. So by that rule, because they both finished 10-2 in my opinion. Yeah. I would lean. It would have to be Penn State, Oregon, which is fine with me. That's feels like a good game. Most realistically, though, it probably will be Oregon, Ohio State. But I still have, regardless, I think Oregon's going to win the Big Ten. Best quarterback, I have Dylan Gabriel. Yeah. I think he might be still the Heisman favorite right now. Yeah. Best matchup of the year, obviously, I think Ohio State, Oregon. Yeah. Possibly the best matchup of the year in general. But I think honorable mention, Ohio State at Penn State.
That's a good one.
So, I mean, that it could be possibly just like who's going to be the next team to make it into Indianapolis for that one. Best player, Caleb Downs for me. I mean, he led Alabama as a freshman in tackles. From the safety position. So, and now he just comes
can't really beat that
to Ohio State, and they just add him in. And he's returning. There's videos of him returning on punts on the special team. Yeah. So there's that. And sleeper team, Iowa or Nebraska for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, I have my championship prediction is Oregon and Iowa. I think Iowa only wins one game, and I think Ohio State and Penn State split, and they lose some games in there. That's my only problem. So I have those two in the championship game. I don't actually think Iowa is the second best team in the Big Ten, but I think because of their schedule, they only drop one and they make it into the championship. And I don't think Oregon's going to lose a game on that schedule. My most exciting game, without a doubt, is obviously Ohio State versus Oregon. I think that's going to be, without a doubt, the most entertaining game this season, far and away. But I also really like, which one is it? My bad. Obviously, Ohio State, Michigan will be good because finally, I think those teams will be on a bit more of an even playing field for the first time in forever, feels like. And I'm really excited for Nebraska, Iowa. Like, obviously, defensive showdown, but both these teams could be looking at like fighting for a playoff spot in that game, which is a crazy statement.
Yeah,
I think Nebraska is one of my sleeper teams for sure because they could easily sneak their way into a top 10 ranking, sitting right there, nice and pretty, where they don't have to worry about a championship game. They just get to walk into the playoffs with a red carpet and get to play a nice game on the road. And then my best player is Caleb Down. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Caleb, I mean, he's so good. The only other guys who I'm sitting there and I'm going like, okay, I think Dylan Gabriel could, just because of that offense and the way they're able to put up points, he could have a like Heisman-esque year. And then we sit back here in a year and we go, oh, why weren't we thinking about him? That's the only other guy I'm thinking out where I'm like, maybe. Just because with the way Oregon runs their offense, he could easily put up 40 plus touchdowns, only throw 5-6 interceptions, and they win every game by like 30 points. And we're like, oh, well, obviously he's a top 10 pick in the draft next season, right? But
yeah,
I still got to go with Downs. I think he's the most talented guy in the conference.
All righty. So with all the big